April 20th, 2010. A date that would soon be etched into history, not for triumph, but for tragedy. It began as an ordinary Tuesday, but by nightfall, the world would be forever changed. Deepwater Horizon, a marvel of modern engineering and a symbol of human ambition, stood 41 miles off Louisiana's coast, drilling for oil beneath the Gulf of Mexico. The rig was a floating city, home to more than 120 workers, each playing a vital role in the relentless pursuit of energy. The day began like any other. The Gulf was calm, the sun rising over tranquil waters, and the crew went about their routines, unaware of the danger lurking deep below the surface. Suddenly, a surge of natural gas blasted through a newly installed concrete core meant to seal the well. The pressure was immense, overwhelming the rig's defenses in seconds. The gas ignited, triggering a massive explosion that rocked the platform. In an instant, the rig was transformed from a place of work to a scene of chaos and terror. Fireballs lit the night sky, chaos erupted on the rig as alarms blared and workers scrambled for their lives. The inferno was visible for miles, a beacon of disaster on the open sea. 11 workers lost their lives that night, their absence felt deeply by families and colleagues alike. Many more were injured, suffering burns, trauma, and the scars of survival. The survivors would carry the memory of that night forever. The rig burned for 2 days, a towering inferno against the horizon, before finally succumbing to the flames and sinking to the ocean floor, leaving only smoke and debris in its wake. As it vanished beneath the waves, it ruptured the riser pipe, opening a direct path from the oil reservoir to the sea. The disaster was far from over. It was only just beginning. Crude oil began pouring into the Gulf, an unstoppable black tide that would soon threaten everything in its path, from fragile wetlands to thriving fisheries. What started as a rig disaster quickly became an environmental crisis, as oil-coated shorelines and wildlife struggled to survive in the polluted waters. The world watched in horror as the Gulf's vibrant ecosystem, home to dolphins, turtles and countless species, faced its gravest threat in living memory. The true scale of the catastrophe was only beginning to emerge. Satellite images revealed a growing stain on the sea, and news outlets broadcast the unfolding disaster to every corner of the globe. The Deepwater Horizon disaster would haunt the Gulf for years to come, as communities rallied to clean beaches, rescue wildlife, and mourn what was lost. The ocean's secrets, once hidden, now spilled forth in a torrent of oil, forever altering the balance of life beneath the waves. The Gulf of Mexico entered its darkest hour, as the world realized the true cost of our quest for energy and the fragile beauty we risk losing. The disaster's roots lay deep beneath the seabed at the Macondo prospect, where the promise of untapped oil drew the world's attention to the Gulf of Mexico. This was a place of immense pressure, both geological and human, where every decision carried enormous risk. A concrete core, installed by Halliburton, was supposed to seal the well and keep volatile gases at bay. This barrier was critical, designed to withstand the immense forces below the ocean floor and prevent any leaks from reaching the surface. But it was flawed, compromised by a nitrogen mix that weakened its integrity. The cement, meant to be a fortress, became a weak link, riddled with tiny channels that allowed gas to seep through, undetected by those above. Gas found its way through, setting off the chain of disaster. Invisible at first, these bubbles of methane crept upward, building pressure and silently threatening catastrophe. The blowout preventer, the last line of defense, failed. This massive device, engineered to clamp shut in an emergency, was the final safeguard against disaster. Its shear rams jammed, unable to seal the well. In the critical moment, the technology designed to save lives and the environment simply did not work. Investigations revealed systemic failures, cost-cutting, ignored warnings, and a culture that put speed over safety. Red flags were missed, and crucial tests were skipped or misinterpreted in the rush to finish the job. BP, Transocean and Halliburton all faced scrutiny for their roles. Each company pointed fingers, but all shared responsibility for the decisions that led to disaster. The disaster was not a single mistake, but a cascade of human errors and technical failures, each compounding the last. It was a perfect storm of misjudgments and malfunctioning equipment. Safety was sacrificed for profit and expediency. In the relentless pursuit of oil, corners were cut and the consequences were devastating. The Deepwater Horizon tragedy became a stark warning of what happens when oversight fails. The loss was not just financial but deeply human, with lives lost and families shattered. Nature's power, underestimated, proved catastrophic. The ocean, once a source of opportunity, became a force of destruction that no one could control. The cost of hubris was now measured in lives and environmental ruin. The scars left behind served as a grim reminder of the price paid when ambition outpaces caution. With the riser ruptured, oil gushed into the Gulf. BP's early estimates were far too low. The real flow peaked at over 60,000 barrels a day. For 87 days, nearly 5 million barrels of oil poured into the sea. Only a fraction was captured, the rest spread, poisoning the Gulf. The slick grew to cover an area larger than Florida, contaminating over 1,300 miles of shoreline. Marshes, beaches, and estuaries were choked by oil. The Gulf's rich biodiversity was under siege. The largest marine oil spill in history was unfolding in plain sight. The lifeblood of the coast, its waters and wildlife, was under direct assault. The nightmare was only beginning. Stopping the leak was a monumental challenge, one that tested the limits of human ingenuity and endurance. The world watched anxiously as experts raced to find a solution, knowing that every passing hour meant more oil pouring into the sea. The wellhead lay a mile beneath the surface, shrouded in crushing pressure and total darkness. Down there, the environment was as hostile as outer space, making every operation risky and uncertain. Engineers tried a massive containment dome, hoping to trap the gushing oil. But the cold, high-pressure depths caused methane hydrates to form, clogging the dome and forcing the team to abandon this plan. The top kill method was next, pumping heavy mud into the well to stifle the flow. But the well's pressure was too great, and the mud was blasted back out, leaving the leak unchecked. In June, a cap was installed, capturing some of the escaping oil. Yet despite this partial success, a significant amount of oil still leaked into the Gulf, staining the water and coastline. Only in July did a tighter, more advanced cap finally reduce the flow to a trickle. For the first time in months, hope began to return. Relief wells were drilled for months, a painstaking process requiring precision and patience. In September, cement was injected deep underground, sealing the well for good and ending the immediate crisis. The world exhaled in relief, grateful that the relentless flow had finally stopped. But beneath the surface, the scars of the disaster lingered. The battle to contain the spill was a race against time and nature, with every setback a reminder of the ocean's power and unpredictability. Each failed attempt underscored the limits of technology in the deep sea, where even the best-laid plans could unravel in an instant. The well was declared dead, but the Gulf's wounds remained open, its communities and wildlife left to cope with the aftermath. The crisis had changed the Gulf forever, leaving a legacy of loss, resilience, and hard lessons for the future. Cleanup began as oil spread. Nearly 2 million gallons of chemical dispersants were used. Some sprayed from planes, some injected deep underwater. The long-term effects of these chemicals remain uncertain. Booms, skimmers, and controlled burns were deployed, but only a fraction of the oil was recovered. Much of the oil sank or dispersed, creating toxic plumes and marine snow on the seafloor. Thousands of workers and volunteers joined the effort, but the scale was overwhelming. Official cleanup ended years later, but the oil's legacy lingered. The Gulf would bear the scars for generations. The environmental toll was staggering. Marshes, nurseries for fish and storm barriers soaked up toxic oil. Beaches and sea floor were saturated. Tar balls washed ashore for years. Dolphins and whales suffered mass die-offs and reproductive failures. The endangered Rice's whale and Kemp's Ridley sea turtle populations were devastated. Up to 1 million birds perished, including brown pelicans and laughing gulls. Oil-coated feathers and shells meant death for countless animals. Deep-sea corals, some millennia old, were smothered and killed. Recovery for many species would take decades, if not centuries. The Gulf's ecosystems were changed, perhaps forever. The true cost to wildlife was incalculable. The Gulf's fishing industry ground to a halt. Waters closed, boats docked, families left without income. Many small businesses never recovered. Tourism collapsed as images of oil-soaked beaches spread worldwide. Hotels, restaurants and tour operators suffered massive losses. An offshore drilling moratorium led to thousands more job losses. Clean-up workers and residents faced health problems from oil and dispersants. Mental health crises, depression, anxiety, PTSD were widespread. BP set up a $20 billion compensation fund, but many found relief inadequate. Billions were paid in damages, but frustration and hardship persisted. Most health-related lawsuits were dismissed, leaving many without recourse. The human cost of the spill was as profound as the environmental one. The search for accountability began. A presidential commission blamed BP, Halliburton and Transocean for systemic failures and a culture of complacency. Government oversight was also faulted for lax regulation. Investigations highlighted poor decisions, faulty cement and failed equipment. BP's CEO became a symbol of corporate mismanagement and resigned. BP's reputation and market value plummeted. New safety rules were introduced, but many key reforms stalled in Congress. Industry practices improved, but regulatory gaps remained. The disaster was a wake-up call, but not all lessons were learned. The question of true accountability lingers. Restoration began with billions from BP settlements. The Restore Act directed most penalties to Gulf recovery projects. Hundreds of initiatives aimed to heal ecosystems and communities. Some successes emerged. Brown pelican populations rebounded on restored islands, but many projects were small compared to the vast damage. Deep-sea recovery remains slow. Some coral communities may never fully recover. The disaster spurred advances in oil spill science and response. Local knowledge became vital in restoration planning. 15 years on, the Gulf's recovery is ongoing, but threats remain: climate change, continued drilling and pollution. The Deepwater Horizon spill stands as a stark reminder. Prevention and respect for nature are paramount.